at all, since I'll never have a better chance, and since you should know what the rest of us do. You're in the same boat with us, and tarred with the same brush. There's a lot of gossip that may or may not be true, but I know one very startling fact. Here it is. My great-great-grandfather left some notes which, taken in connection with certain things I myself saw on the planetoid, prove beyond question that our Roger went to Harvard University at the same time he did. Roger was a grown man then, and the elder Penrose noted that he was marked like this. And the American sketched a cabalistic design. "What!" Baxter exclaimed. "An adept of North Polar Jupiter? Them?" "Yes, that was before the first Jovian War, you know, and it was those medicine men, really high-caliber scientists, that prolonged that war so—" "But I say, Penrose, that's really a bit thick. When they were wiped out, it was proved a lot of hocus-pocus." "Some of it was, but most of it wasn't," Penrose interrupted in turn. "I'm not asking you to believe anything except that one fact. I'm just telling you the rest of it. But it is also a fact that those adepts knew things and did things that take a lot of explaining. Now for the gossip, none of which is guaranteed. Roger is undoubtedly of Tellurian parentage, and the story is that his father was a moon pirate, his mother a Greek adventuress. When the pirates were chased off the moon, they went to Ganymede, you know, and some of them were captured by the Jovians. It seems that Roger was born at an instant of time sacred to the adepts, so they took him on. He worked his way up through the Forbidden Society as all adepts did, by various kinds of murder and job lots of assorted deviltries, until he got clear to the top, the 77th mystery." "The secret of eternal youth!" gasped Baxter, awed in spite of himself. "Right, and he stayed chief devil, in spite of all the efforts of all his ambitious sub-devils to kill him, until the turning point of the First Jovian War. He cut away then in a spaceship, and ever since then he has been working, and working hard, on some stupendous plan of his own that nobody else has ever got even an inkling of. That's the story. True or not, it explains a lot of things that no other theory can touch. And now I think you'd better shuffle along. Enough of this is a great plenty." Baxter went to his own cubby, and each man of the Adept's cold-blooded crew methodically took up his task. True to prediction, in 15 days a planet loomed beneath them, and their vessel settled through a reeking atmosphere toward a rocky and forbidding plain. Then for another day they plunged along, a few thousand feet above the surface of that strange world, while Roger with his analytical detectors sought the most favorable location from which to wrest the materials necessary for his program of construction. It was a world of cold. Its sun was distant, pale and wan. It had monstrous forms of vegetation, of which each branch and member writhed and fought with a grotesque and horrible individual activity. Ever and anon a struggling part broke from its parent plant and darted away in independent existence, leaping upon and consuming or being consumed by a fellow creature equally monstrous. This flora was of a uniform color, a lurid, sickly yellow. In form, some of it was fern-like, some cactus-like, some vaguely tree-like, but it was all outrageous, inherently repulsive to all Solarian senses. And no less hideous were the animal-like forms of life, which slithered and slunk rapaciously through that fantastic pseudo-vegetation. Snake-like, reptile-like, bat-like, the creatures squirmed, crawled, and flew, each covered with a dankly oozing yellow hide, and each motivated by twin common impulses, to kill, and insatiably and indiscriminately to devour. Over this reeking wilderness Roger drove his vessel, untouched by its disgusting, its appalling ferocity and horror. "There should be intelligence of a kind," he mused, and swept the surface of the planet with an exploring beam. Ah, yes, there is a city, of sorts. And in a few minutes the outlaws were looking down upon a metal-walled city of roundly conical buildings. Inside these structures and between and around them there scuttled formless blobs of matter, one of which Roger brought up into his vessel by means of a tractor ray. Held immovable by the beam, it lay upon the floor, a strangely extensile, amoeba-like metal-studded mass of leathery substance. Of eyes, ears, limbs, or organs, it apparently had none, yet it radiated an intensely hostile aura, a mental effluvium concentrated of rage and of hatred. "Apparently the ruling intelligence of the planet," Roger commented. "Such creatures are useless to us. We can build robots in half the time required for their subjugation and training. Still, it should not be permitted to carry back what it may have learned of us." As he spoke, the adept threw the peculiar being out into the air and dispassionately rayed it out of existence. "That thing reminds me of a man I used to know back in Penobscot." Penrose was as coldly callous as his unfeeling master. The evenest-tempered man in town, mad all the time. Eventually Roger found a location which satisfied his requirements of raw materials, and made a landing upon that unfriendly soil. Sweeping beams denuded a great circle of life, and into that circle leaped robots. Robots requiring neither rest nor food, but only lubricants and power. Robots insensible alike to that bitter cold and to that noxious atmosphere. But the outlaws were not to win a foothold upon that inimical planet easily, nor were they to hold it without effort. Through the weird vegetation of the circle's bare edge there scuttled and poured along a horde of the metal-studded men, if men they may be called, who, ferocity incarnate, rushed the robot line. Mowed down by hundreds, still they came on, willing, it seemed, to expend any number of lives in order that one living creature might once touch a robot with one out-thrust metallic stud. Whenever that happened there was a flash as of lightning, the heavy smoke of burning insulation, grease, and metal, and the robot went down out of control. Recalling his remaining automatons, Roger sent out a shielding screen, against which the defenders of their planet raged in impotent fury. For days they hurled themselves and their every force against that impenetrable barrier, then withdrew, temporarily stopped, but by no means acknowledging defeat. Then, while Roger and his cohorts directed affairs from within their comfortable and now sufficiently roomy vessel, there came into being around it an industrial city of metal, peopled by metallic and insensate mechanisms. Mines were sunk, furnaces were blown in, smelters belched forth into the already unbearable air their sulphurous fumes, rolling mills and machine shops were built and equipped, and as fast as new enterprises were completed, additional robots were ready to man them. In record time the heavy work of girders, members, and plates was well under way, and shortly thereafter light, deft, and multi-fingered mechanical men began the interminable task of building and installing the prodigious amount of precise machinery required for the vast structure. Roger was well content, but one day he was rudely awakened from his dream of complete isolation. Even though he had no reason to believe that there was anything dangerous within hundreds of millions of miles, it was Roger's cautious custom to release the screens from time to time, in order to allow his detectors to range out. This day, as he sent out his beams, his hard gray eyes grew even harder. "Mirsky! Nishimura, come here!" he snapped, and showed them upon his plate an enormous sphere of steel, its rays flaming viciously. "Is there any doubt whatever in your minds as to the system to which that ship belongs?" "None at all. Triplanetarian," replied the Russian. "While larger than any I have seen before, its construction is unmistakable. They managed to trace us and are testing out their weapons before attacking. Do we attack, or do we run away?" "If Triplanetarian, and it surely is, we attack," coldly. This one section is